everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that wants to point out that Rachel, just like every member of Spirit Airlines, got off the plane. I'm Matt.
I'm Brett.
You didn't see that one coming, did you?
Nope. Neither did you, because you definitely had that one planned out.
I totally had it planned out. We didn't just sit here for 10 minutes me trying to think of an opening line. Never. We are so like meta about ourselves. Like, listen, good podcasters, they don't pull the curtain back nearly as much as we do. But we're just like, hey, here's the inside joke. Now you're part of it. And people are like, it's not as funny to me because they're not on the inside.
Not exactly. So a podcast that I know you don't listen to is How Rude Tanneritos, the Full House Rewatch podcast. They've been saying a lot lately how they, like, because Jodie Sweetin, I guess, was on a vacation, or she was out of town, so they like block recorded a bunch of episodes together, and for a while they keep saying like, yeah, we have to record multiple episodes today. It's been a week for you, but we just recorded a minute ago, and it's like they're definitely pulling back the curtain because they release one a week, and they're just pulling back like, oh yeah, we did like 5 in a day.
True. Maybe I'm just being hard on us. We have our podcasting imposter syndrome. We're not that podcast. We're not Pod Meets World. We're not the Joe Rogan Show. We're not other podcasts that I definitely listen to.
Yeah,
I listen to a lot of fantasy football podcasts. That's really where I will spend my time on the podcast circuit, which is weird. Like, as a guy who's all about like multimedia and like movies and TV, and I'm like, I don't listen to those. I'm gonna listen to football. I think we have a lot of overlap, right?
It just may be this podcast.
That's it. That's all.
I listen to podcasts that you'd think that you would like. Like I've done Lost Rewatch podcasts. I've done podcasts of shows we both watch.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's those out there that be like, oh, this is fun, but I haven't gotten into it. I guess I'm too busy watching shows for your guys' benefit. For you, if you want to ask me questions about even these shows that a lot of normal people haven't watched, if you want to ask me about For All Mankind or Shrinking, or if you want to ask me about Lord of the Flies on Netflix, I've got answers for you. But
yeah, or Matt could tell me in 2021, hey, you should watch this new show called Only Murders in the Building, and I'll say no. And then 5 years later, I'll be like, hey, did you know this is a good show?
And then we'll get to the, hey, best of the previous year. And I'm like, here's the 35 shows that I watched this year. And then you're like, I watched 2.
I already have watched more shows in 2026 than I did in 2025. I'm not going to watch as many as you, I know, but I will have more to talk about than last year's already.
I'm proud of you. I'm with you, man. It's an improvement. That was your New Year's resolution last year. Watch more TV, and it's hard to get there, but you're doing it.
Well, it's watch more new TV because I watch old TV with Sabrina all the time.
Nice. By the way, Sabrina's his girlfriend, not Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He's not like that's the only thing he's watching.
Yes, or Sabrina Carpenter. I'm not watching old shows with Sabrina Carpenter.
Well, I know. I think she was like a Disney kid, right? Like I don't know.
On Girl Meets World, yeah.
Okay. Really? She started on Girl Meets World?
Yeah, she was the best friend to Corey and Topanga's daughter. She was like the Sean of that show.
You would think that I would know this, having a TV podcast and also like her being such a huge pop star. Nope, didn't know that. Learned it today.
Girl Meets World is okay at best, I would say.
Which is just a rousing endorsement.
Yeah. There are some good moments, mostly when they bring back cameos from like Eric or Feeney or the parents, but the show as itself is really, it's a show.
And we're going to talk in a couple weeks about like reboots and reunions and stuff like that. And it doesn't quite fit, but we're going to throw The Paper in there. And like, that's another show that I'd probably honestly call that. Like, at best, you'll chuckle. Yeah. It's a far cry from The Office.
So just yes or no, don't tell me who, but aside from Oscar and Bob Vance. Is there any other characters from The Office who make any appearances?
I can't remember if there are other characters. I know there's references to these characters,
Yeah.
but I don't think I remember more characters showing up.
Okay. I will have watched it by the time we talk about that, but as of right now,
peel back the curtain. No, that one.
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But what I do care about is my friends. Guys, there are 6 people that we both love deeply. Well, okay, there's 5 people in Ross that we both love deeply.
I knew you were going to make a joke and pick one of them out. I was thinking, is it going to be Joey? For some reason, I thought it'd either be Joey or Ross.
Why would it be Joey? Everyone loves Joey. If it's if you're doing a coin flip of which one I'm going to pull out, you're either going to have Ross, Rachel, or maybe Monica.
Yeah, but with Joey, and we'll get to it. We'll get to like the characters and their character development. Joey definitely changed the least from season 1 to season 10, I think.
All right, we'll get to it because I don't know if I agree with that because there's the thing that happens in sitcoms. Before we get into this, there's a thing that happens in sitcoms. We know it, and there's actually a term for it where it's characters get Flanderized, and that term comes from obviously, if for those who know Simpsons, there's the next door neighbor Ned Flanders who he starts off as like he's the kind neighbor, he's the kind Christian neighbor to like the absurdity of the Simpsons, but he's still like a normal person. However, as the show goes on, he becomes very one note of like, I am pious, I am Christian, but I'm also like this doormat. And so like, I'm like, I only can say heck. And even that's a swear word. And any negative thing you say against me, I'm going to be like, oh, that's, I have the patience to roll over and take it. And that does happen with a couple of our characters in this. It doesn't mean that they suddenly aren't good anymore, but they definitely are Flanderized. That's
true. And well, and I suppose that's kind of, I meant something different when we get to Joey, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we'll go through the 6 friends. So my vision for this episode was like mainly talking about the pilot and the finale and seeing how the show progressed over 10 years. What's different? What was their journey? What is like, where they started versus where they ended?
Yeah. And so my thought when we're doing that is we like pick one character, we talk about where they're starting, where they're ending, and their journey, and then we just kind of do that with all 6.
Should we start with Joey since we've been talking about Joey?
We can start with Joey. And here's one thing I'm going to point out about Joey with the pilot. When we first meet Joey is not stupid. That is like the biggest change about Joey is he drops about 40 IQ points. So we meet Joey and he's just kind of like that suave ladies man sort of guy. He is an actor in this pilot episode. He's not making any work. Rachel asked him if she would recognize him in anything, and he's like, oh, it's all just like regional, which is, code word for I'm not getting any gigs. So he's this poor out of work actor just trying to get by on his looks. He actually has some advice in this episode that I'm not going to say is like good advice, but it is like an actual piece of advice versus like, look at how dumb Joey is and how he out of touch he is with the world. He actually is just like, hey, get back on the horse to Ross, and we'll talk about Ross's journey and everything. Yeah. And so he actually, will have something that he kind of inspires Ross with. He's not a moron.
No.
But obviously we get to later seasons. I don't even know when it was when they really leaned into, okay, he's stupid now. It wasn't too late. But
no, it was maybe about halfway through or so. I think after the Dr. Drake Remore the first time, because he was Dr. Drake, then he wasn't, and then they brought him back.
Yeah.
But with like the finale, the pilot of Friends, Joey is one where Joey doesn't really have anything to do. Joey, Chandler, and Phoebe in the pilot have really no storyline. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
And Joey in the series finale also doesn't really have a storyline. And if you look at what I'm saying, those character development, I mean, yes, he does get dumber, but aside from having more money than he did in the pilot. Everybody else is married with kids and they're moving and everything. Joey is still pretty much in the same apartment, and he doesn't really have any big change as far as his relationship dynamics. He's the one that was kind of a blank slate for them to try Joey with the sitcom Joey.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up, because when I'm talking about like changing, I also do include that a piece of his character becomes he loves to eat, and I mean, like that's fine, but that just becomes a piece of his identity that we don't really see in this first episode. So it's like they pick, okay, dumb, good looking, loves to eat. Those are like three things, and then they build his character around that as seasons progress, because we don't really see too many arcs of him going through things. And to be fair, Friends isn't that kind of show for the most part.
Yeah.
But the biggest arc that he has, to me, is probably when it focuses on Monica and Chandler and keeping their secret as a friend to them. There's stuff with him and Rachel, but I think like really he gets the most agency for a continuing storyline with their storyline and trying to be friends to them, and then, falling apart because he's struggling with the weight of the secret.
Yeah, and it's like we like that. There's a scene during that time where nobody knows about Monica and Chandler except for Joey, and he keeps getting caught up in, like, there's that episode where it's like, yeah, Joey has a peephole and he looks at naked pictures of us while he eats chicken, and you feel bad for him because everybody else is thinking he's some like crazy perverted stalking creeper, and us and Monica and Chandler as the audience are the only ones who know that he's not, and you feel so bad for him because it looks really bad for him in that moment.
I'm Joey. I'm disgusting.
Yeah.
So so we have that piece of him, and there's other things other arcs that he has. There's a little bit, like I said, with him and Rachel, and then in the final season with him and Charlie. But even those are small. There's this thing called the Bechdel test for writing, where it's like trying to make sure that women have agency in what you're writing. And so if your script has two women talking with each other and it's not about a man, then it passes the Bechdel test. So Joey, on the other side of it, for anything in his storyline, he wouldn't pass that test in terms of his relationship to other people. There's nothing interesting about him and his life outside of the relationships he's having. Like I said, with Monica and Chandler, and then like the dating, will they, won't they, with Rachel or Charlie or that.
He had that one episode where his parents were splitting up, and then they never saw his parents ever again.
I don't remember, and that shows that she speaks to it. I don't remember that episode. So
yeah, it was early on. Yeah.
But yeah, he had a lot more opportunity if they wanted to go that route of really the struggling actor storyline, because he has the Reader's Digest moment where he's talking about his acting jobs, and he's dating that one girl in that show. No, wait, what was it? He was dating that girl in the show, or was Chandler dating her? What was I'm just blanking.
Oh, you mean Paget Brewster or Kathy?
Maybe.
No, Joey was dating her, but she connected with Chandler. So then basically she cheated on Joey with Chandler, and then she cheated on Chandler with the new guy.
That's right. Yeah. Because I remember it was like the whole, hey, if they have chemistry on stage,
they don't off stage, and vice versa.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that was a nice moment when she cheated on Chandler. Chandler is like all depressed, like, Kathy didn't cheat on all of you, except for you, and pointed to Joey.
So, yeah, Joey was done dirty in terms of that, but I mean, he still ends up being such a funny character, and he's just he's more the comic relief. He's a little bit of like a dog, he's there, he's loyal, he loves you.
Which, ironic, I was reading that when they conceived of the show originally, Phoebe and Chandler were going to be supporting characters, not really as main character as the other four, and they envisioned Monica and Joey being a couple early on, but before they realized, Ross and Rachel is something. So then they pivoted away from that. So it was almost a show about Monica and Joey and Ross and Rachel, with Chandler and Phoebe just kind of being there.
Which that I mean, there is a lot more where Chandler and Phoebe are there, but again, it's in terms of the relationships. Which one do you want to move on to? Because we can pivot into one of them. Pivot!
Well, yeah. Let's go into Phoebe, because I think she's kind of similar to Joey a little bit, but she has more development, especially when it comes to Mike.
Yes. Go for it.
So Phoebe, again, looking at the pilot, Phoebe is again, she's just kind of there. She's just a supporting character, and she is the most detached because she's not related. She's not dating anybody in the group, and she is not like college roommates. She's the they even talk about at one point, she's the easiest one that could have been lifted out easily without any ties.
Yeah.
But Phoebe, I mean, Phoebe always beat to her own drum, and she always had her own place, except for that little bit when she lived with Rachel. But then her thing at the end was, even though she's eccentric, she did get her happy ending with Mike, and that's what kind of separates from her from Joey, because Joey really was in the same kind of position at the end as it was in the beginning, whereas Phoebe now is married with Mike and talking about potentially having kids of their own. So she is moving forward towards the end.
Yeah. She's one of those characters that the way that they start her too. Yeah, she's weird all the way across the board.
Yeah.
They never drop the weirdness and the quirkiness of her, but they do refine it. I feel like they earlier in the episode in the seasons that she's a little bit more principled in some of her wackiness too, where she's a little bit more of like that progressive hippie, like vegan, no corporation stuff. And she never really loses that, but it becomes a very small part of her versus just she's quirky and aloof, and she'll just say whatever and kind of get away with a little bit of the shock humor because it's just absurd. The jokes that she'll make, the I love Jacques Cousteau moment, it's hilarious, but it's weird. It's just an oddball response. They just lean into the absurdity humor versus more targeted.
Yeah, she's never not weird, but I think especially like in season 1, she was very much more of the hippie. And if that was how she was the whole 10 seasons, it would have gotten grating. She eventually got to where she could talk like a normal person and not always like, I'm cleansing your aura, like she did to Ross on the pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the moment that I was like, oh yeah, that's a very season 1 through 3 Phoebe thing versus others.
Yeah. And then in the finale, even though she didn't really have her own storyline in the series finale, she does have that great moment where she's like racing her cab, trying to get Ross to the airport and screaming and down the freeway. Like that's a fun Phoebe moment, but it's a different Phoebe kind of moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's also, it actually is some of the most realistic things where it's like, you might be that way when you're in your early 20s, and that might be a way you express yourself and you feel like you're unique, but eventually you do kind of conform a little bit. And so like the even her massage business, like we'll put it that way, how she treats her massage business, and then like when she has someone come to the door and Ross does the massage for her, and that I mean she doesn't do that without her it's without her knowledge, but the way that she treats like her clients, she's like, no, like they are expecting something very specific. Like, I have responsibilities as a human being. I'm not here to just be like, ooh, here's Ricky, and or like I'm gonna like throw ash on you, like whatever weirdness that you would expect from Phoebe. No, she's doing it like as an actual professional, and so she's a lot more. Sorry, my phone goes off in the middle of a sentence. So she's a lot more down. I don't want to say more down to earth, but a little bit more. She's mellowed out in the weirdness department.
She's living in the real world, but she never loses her individuality.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So, who else do you want to go? Who do you want to go to next? We've done Joey and Phoebe.
Well, let's also real quick talk about her relationship with Mike just a little bit too.
Yeah. So Mike, and I'm realizing, like, man, like I know the joke is that Paul Rudd never looks like he ages, but man, Paul Rudd looked so young when I watched the finale. Paul Rudd was like 32 or something.
And Paul Rudd was such a good addition to the cast, because I mean you looked at, okay, you had Ross and Rachel, the will they won't they, and then Monica and Chandler hooked up, and I just, or and more than that because they have kids and they got married. But then there's a little bit of the natural pairing left is Joey and Phoebe, and you could make that work, but it worked better to bring in this outsider. And Paul Rudd is the outsider to bring in. And so even though he wasn't one of the ones from the beginning, he still felt like a natural extension. And it also, avoided the trap then of all six of them pair off and they become their own couples. And I think
I'm glad
as well.
I'm glad they never seriously went with Phoebe and Joey. They joked about it here and there, but they never seriously went with, it's Phoebe and Joey.
Yeah.
And you're right.
In a real friend situation like that, they probably could have hooked up and probably would have hooked up, but that I don't think they ever would have been a very serious, like we're romantically interested.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about Mike, the moment that I think that Mike really it became clear how good he was for Phoebe was in the Barbados episode when they're doing ping pong with Monica and Chandler, and if I remember it. Phoebe hurts her wrist so she can't, and then Mike steps in, and you don't know how competitive it is until he serves and is really good, and he looks like, yeah, I'm awesome. And you see Phoebe's adoration in that moment. It's like, oh, he is perfect for Phoebe in that moment.
Yeah, I feel like The Office tried to emulate that scene when they did their ping pong things with Jim and Pam and Roy, and so Yep.
And
great comedies borrow from other ones.
Oh, of course. And Mike also just yes-anded and just went along with Phoebe's we have rat babies now.
and yet he still would stand up to some of her absurdity, like the best one, the Princess Consuela banana hammock and crap bag.
Yeah.
If you have a hard time remembering it, just think of a bag of crap.
Yep. Or when Phoebe punched trying to be all fun, punched his dad, and she's like, I've never met a boy's parents before, but you have met humans before.
Yeah, that Phoebe was a good one to talk about next, and we have to include Mike. So we'll talk about Chandler / Monica, but let's start with Monica.
Sure.
And then there's going to be plenty of overlap, though, for sure, right?
Oh, definitely. And I think initially Monica was kind of thought of as to be the main character instead of them all being six. And the pilot kind of definitely focuses a little bit more on Rachel, but a lot on Monica and her dating with Paul the wine guy and setting up. Oh, she's a 20-something girl who's unlucky in love, and you could have made her be the main character, but I'm glad they spread that around.
Yeah, because they gave her ties to Ross and Rachel of Rachel, oh, she's gonna be living here now, and they were friends in high school, and Ross is Monica's brother, so she has those ties, and then you've got the other three side characters, quote unquote, as we're discussing. Yeah, and so you're right that she kind of has a little bit of that main character energy, where she's also. This is why I don't always like main characters in sitcoms, is because they tend to be the most boring ones, because they have to be a little bit of the relatable audience surrogate in some ways, where it's sure, everyone else can be absurd, but they have to be down to earth, and then they lose a little bit of their punch from being a good character. So in this first episode, she's a little bit more boring. She doesn't have the OCD. If you look at the apartment, it's a lot more of a mess than Monica would ever let it get away with later on.
And she, I don't know, I think they started to find that OCD neat freak type A person pretty quickly, but you're right, it wasn't there in the pilot.
Yeah. And they gave her a lot of opportunities. I don't know where it was that they realized she does neurotic energy really well. In her competition, speaking of the ping pong stuff, and she was the other side of it versus Mike. And so we see her get very competitive, and we see her just love to win. And that's a great side of it versus Ross. I think probably if we're looking at the first of it, this is me off the top of my head. It was an early episode of the Thanksgiving episodes where it's the football episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
And that might
season
have been the
3
first that we see of like really that dynamic, because it's really early on, and I don't recall seeing too much of the craziness before that.
between her and Ross.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was some beforehand, but that was definitely the biggest because that episode really was. It was the Gellers and everyone else thinking, "Wow, the Gellers are crazy."
Yes. Which they are.
I mean, not they all get their crazy, but yeah, especially when Ross and Monica feed off their energy either together or separately. Like I'm also thinking when they get super into the New Year's Eve dance. It's
Yes.
like,
Yeah. And you're like, it is a Geller energy. You're right. Because David
Yeah.
Schwimmer has his own unique brand of crazy.
yeah, but their energy definitely overlaps.
Yeah.
And then in the
Well,
finale, I mean, we got to talk about Monica with Chandler, or where were you going to go next?
I was going to say, yeah, we have to talk about Monica with Chandler, but I think one detour that she has is with
Richard.
Richard. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we have a significant portion of time spent with Richard. To the point that when it's time for her to get engaged and married to Chandler, that we have to bring Richard back, because one thing that the writers like to do is that, hey, if you're going to marry this person off, you have to give them a chance to put to bed their old boyfriends. Like the same thing happened with Phoebe and David.
Oh, that's right.
She had to choose Mike over David, very clearly and cleanly. And so Monica has to do the same thing with Richard, because their arc is he's older than she is, and how is that going to work out? And it finally gets to a spot when like a very natural separation point is he doesn't want any more kids because he's gone through that before, and she does.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because they do talk about the age gap, because I mean he is obviously way older than her, but it didn't, because Monica was kind of the most mature of the six. It kind of worked, and you kind of forget sometimes. Oh yeah, there's like a 20-year age gap.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And then she's also the one that I know this isn't an arc, but she was the one that also dated an 18-year-old or something, an 18-year-old.
Oh yeah, because she thought he was 22, but even so.
Yeah. So biggest age swing of all the friends.
Yeah. So if you're anywhere between 18 and 60, Monica will date you.
Well, I mean now.
Well, yeah, maybe now it's like 30 to 90.
30 but definitely the thing that so Monica was always to me a little bit of a grating person. Like I wouldn't say I didn't like her, but she definitely had the energy that was like, okay, this would definitely be too much in person, but even on the screen it can be a little too much. And they mellowed her out, or more like they evened her out by bringing Chandler into the mix with her. And again, we've talked ad nauseum about how that wasn't supposed to be like this is the rest of the story, is that they're married, etc. This is just a hookup, but it made so much sense, and it worked so well that that was the best continuing storyline in the Friends run, is their relationship together.
Oh, absolutely. And Chandler makes Monica more likable.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, you see her through his eyes. Mm-hmm. It's weird how writing can do that. It reminds me of the Hunger Games, where it's like Katniss gets mad because Peeta was like professing his love for her, and Woody Harrelson's like, he just made you desirable. What are you mad about?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's like when we did our episode, which you can find on YouTube, ranking the characters of Friends, I tried to put Monica a lot lower, and someone vetoed me, because I think she ended up being the lowest of the 6 friends. I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since we did that episode.
I think you're right. I think I maybe on my list actually had Rachel, like in my own personal list, had Rachel lower, but I was okay with Monica being a little lower too.
Yeah. There was no doubt on the top 3, but that's you can go back and listen to that if you want to, listeners.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then obviously they have kids, and they moved into their house together. That was another thing. So they did really good continuing stories for Monica and Chandler.
Yeah.
Because, well, we got like at least 2.5 seasons or so out of their relationship between the start of it and to marriage, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, because they got together at the end of season 4 and they got married at the end of season 7.
Yeah. Yep. And so we got to enjoy that with them. And then they had like a little bit of time just, they're married and great. Okay. And then they started getting to like, well, we want to have kids. And so then they had we're trying to get pregnant versus we're going to adopt, like that storyline. And I think they handled that really well too. Like there was plenty of room for laughter in it, but at the same time, like they weren't taking shots at for a sitcom that didn't really have serious moments for them to handle like an infertility issue. They did it. They definitely handled it.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about Monica's one of the big things about Monica from early on. Like the reason she broke up with Richard was because she wanted to have kids, and the finale of the whole show finally brought that storyline to a resolution by letting her finish the series with kids. Because her more than anybody else in the series kind of needed that, and throughout the whole process, Ross and Rachel had kids by accident.
Yeah. And let's be honest, when you get to that spot in your life when you're having kids, and maybe if your friends aren't, that's when that friend group will start to break down. It's unfortunate that it happens, but it's not like like you're never going to see them again or whatever. You still have a time but it's a different dynamic. If you're in a friend group and you guys have kids and your other friends don't have kids, that's just something that's very important in your life that you can no longer share in commonality with these other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that they cut it off at a spot when they have kids, and also that they kind of conveniently forget about Ross's kids for pretty much the length of the entire run.
Yeah, pretty much. They come in every now and then. And then
like, oh yeah, that's right, he's got a kid. He needs to know about Hanukkah. There you go.
I think that might be the last time we see Ben.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right, well, we didn't talk that much about Chandler in the Chandler and Monica stuff.
Yeah.
Because his personality very much remains steady. Like we talked about that pilot. He doesn't do anything in the pilot except for make sarcastic comments.
Yeah.
And what is what's one of his great jokes in like either the 9th or 10th season where it's like, I don't do advice. Can I interest you in a sarcastic comment? He's still the same way 9 years later.
Yeah, exactly. And Chandler could have been a side character kind of, but even before Monica, I think the reason Chandler is an important character is really his relationship to Joey. His like best friend / caretaker, because he paid for everything and like took care of Joey.
Yep.
And that special dynamic was really endearing. One of the best friendships of the whole show by far is Chandler and Joey. And that was all predated before he even had any whiff of him and Monica.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like inventing the game to be able to pay him off and stuff like that. It's so much. It's such a fun dynamic too, because, like he'll make fun of Joey. He'll make fun of the stupid things he says and the lack of intelligence that he has and stuff. But it's so clear how much he cares for him. Like we talked about Kathy, and we didn't talk about his punishment of being in the box. But like he does that as penance because he feels so bad for what he did to his friend that he loves.
Yeah, and yes, he does notice that Joey is dumb. But I love that they have moments like the one episode where both of them won't get out of their chairs the whole episode. Just show like in some ways Chandler is just as immature as Joey. They're calling and ordering pizza, and he's like, well, "What do we have to pee? I'll cancel the sodas."
And let's be fair. Immature doesn't specifically mean dumb, but
no,
they're next door neighbors.
You can be smart and still sometimes act like a child.
You're right. One thing on Chandler's side, for his relationship with Monica that's different is that his growth is the very, very stereotypical men afraid of commitment sort of thing. Yeah. And like, sure, we get that. And maybe we can attribute that a little bit to how he was with his parents and
Yeah.
their divorce and his dad transitioning and all the weirdness and on that side of it. And he gets to a spot where like love isn't what he thinks it should be. And so he's a little cynical, and he uses that as a reason to worm out of commitment. But we do see that like he's able to believe in love again. He's able to not be afraid anymore because of how he feels about Monica. And it's a great closing to that type of behavior during the wedding part. Because what is it? It's like the what does he run out to do when they're looking for him?
He thinks Monica's pregnant, and so he buys a little baby onesie.
That's right.
Because he still thinks it's Monica instead of Rachel who's pregnant.
Yeah, and he even uses that like fear, quote unquote, of commitment as the crutch for surprising her with the engagement. Whereas just like, oh, I'm not going to be okay about this, blah, 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 blah. Oh, she has no idea I'm about to propose to her, sort of thing.
Yeah. And I love that line that he purposely is trying to make Monica think like, I'm some jerk who will never get married. And that's what makes her go and like kind of flirt with the idea of Richard. And then Chandler tells Richard, and Richard's like, well, your plan worked really well. Well, it would have if it weren't for you, you big tree. I love that.
But that's also that was a good character scene for both Monica and Chandler with Richard, because Chandler was able to like very clearly state, this is what I want. This is who I want. And I don't care. Like he stood up to the manliest man in Hollywood at the time, Tom Selleck. He was able to stand up to him and be like, no, I'm a man. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to love her. And I'm not going to be running away like a boy. And she got to say, hey, I love Chandler. No matter the problems he has, no matter his weirdness and his silliness, like I love him for him. And I'm going to still be there for him. I hope that he wants to continue with this. You know, they both had very much, I'm choosing the other person despite what others could convince me out of.
Yeah. And then we get to the end of the finale. I mean, Chandler is flustered as Monica is to find out, oh, we have two babies, not one. But he's at the point there where he doesn't even think about running away, or he's not, he's stable. He's like, yeah, this is my family. No matter what happens, we'll deal with it. I'll make jokes about it, but we'll deal with it.
Yep. And so if we move to the other big relationship, I mean, those Ross and Rachel, they've got to be the ones that do change the most, not just in terms of the relationship, but in terms of who they are as well, right? Probably Rachel bigger than Ross.
Yeah, I think Rachel is the biggest change, because Rachel in the pilot is not dumb, but just so ditzy and inexperienced and naive. Is the word I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Should we start with Rachel, or do you want to go to Ross?
Yeah, we can start with Rachel, because I mean, like she's the crux of that pilot episode. Is that it's all about this woman who walks into their lives wearing a wedding dress and has nowhere to go, has nowhere to live. She gets in with Monica in her apartment, starts living there, and then still doesn't get a job, and is like, hey, I went shopping. And they're like, no, we got to cut up your credit cards. You've got to cut yourself off from your dad and his money. You've got to be you. You're not going to, like, the whole reason she didn't get married is because she didn't know who she was. Everyone told her who she was. She had to figure it out for herself.
Yeah, and that does show growth right from the start, that she could have stayed on the conveyor belt where she would have never had to work a day in her life, never had to grow as a person. She could be the trophy wife and all of that. But something inside her, I feel like she didn't even know what she wanted to do, but she knew I wanted to be my own person. But then she's like, I don't know how to do this. I've never had to do anything in my life. Everyone's always taking care of me. So then it's, how do I become a functioning member of being an adult? And that's,
And that's the heart of, like, I know the heart of Friends is the friends, but I mean, it's just that snapshot that everyone goes through as a 20-something-year-old, and they're not going to have the exact same experiences as these friends are, but there's enough familiarity that everyone can look at things in Friends and be like, yeah, I remember when I was that way, or I felt that way. And everyone in their mid 20s or early 20s or late teens are like, who the heck am I supposed to be? Everyone's told me who I'm supposed to be, but I don't know who I want to be. And so a big part of her arc, thankfully, is actually not even in her relationships. It's in her jobs. It's when she's working at the coffee shop just to start off and just to like grow a work ethic, but to know like I'm meant for something else. And she finally gets this job. Is it Ralph Lauren first, or is it she's always at Ralph Lauren and just kind of moves up through it?
It's Bloomingdale's first.
Bloomingdale's, that's right.
And then Ralph Lauren, and then she sticks with Ralph Lauren. And by the end, she's we never really clarify what she's going to do with her career because she doesn't get on the plane, she doesn't go to Paris, but she's like moving to Paris to head up a division of Ralph Lauren fashion. That comes a long way from I don't know what is a job thing in the pilot.
And even the fact that she didn't go to that job and she got off the plane for Ross, like that speaks so much to her that it, there's a little bit of like the, well, women empowerment sort of thing of like, well, woman in business is successful. It's like, yes, a woman in business is successful, but she realized in her business that what she cares so much about who she wants to be is with Ross. And so like, that's worth the sacrifice that she would have made for whatever it was. But even then, it's her deciding. And she decided, this is who I am. She can still keep her job, obviously. I would hope so. She can still keep whatever job she's working, but she gets to choose her life now, and no one's deciding it for her. And it gives her that agency to let her be the one who walks off the plane instead of someone takes her off or pulls her off,
Yeah. And even then, like, Ross and Rachel, they dated early on, season 2, I think, is when they were dating. And then they break up and they spend like 8 seasons apart. And there's always flirtation, like Ross is jealous of who Rachel's dating and Rachel is jealous of who Ross is dating, but they don't get together until the finale. Like
8 pages, front and back.
18 pages front
18 pages. I left one off.
Yeah. They spend way more time apart than they do together. And do you like that they came together at the end, or do you think that they should have stayed apart?
I do. I mean, if you're gonna tease us with will they, won't they for all that time, you got to put them together. Even with like Ted Mosby and Robin Scherbatsky, like it. No one likes the finale how it was, but you've been teasing us with these two all along. You kind of have to. And
not only that, but there's out of all the relationships they've had, none of either Rachel or Ross's other relationships were so great. None of them were like Mike level to Phoebe. We're like, oh my gosh, they're so great. Some of them were okay, but none of them were like, I can't believe he didn't end up with Charlie.
What's wrong with Mona? I knew that's a great line. All right.
That's a good line.
I love it. Just taking shots, man. But yeah, like that relationship, I think the relationship isn't as endearing, honestly, as like the Chandler and Monica one, but it is the like why people remember it so much is because like they somehow dragged out Will They Won't They for 8 seasons. That's nuts, guys. That's the patience people had.
And I'm wondering how many of the times did they know they were coming back for another season? Like early on, were they so successful that they always had another pickup, or was it ever a risk of like we don't get to come back and they weren't together?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head.
I think by like season 3 or 4, they were successful enough they could just do whatever they wanted. My guess.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
it seemed that way. Because they like this was a big show, and it was big hit right away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they ever had like a we're really in doubt. When you only have one season behind you, you're not as strong as other ones.
Yeah.
But it was a different time in the 90s, and they were in a high time slot, and so I don't think there was ever really that danger from what I would imagine.
So during the original run of Friends, you and I were 6 to 16. Did you watch any seasons live or no?
Just the season finale or series finale.
Really? I
Yeah.
watched, I think, seasons 8, 9, and 10. I think by like my teen years, I wasn't watching it when I was 6, but I think the last 2 or 3 seasons I was watching it live.
Nice.
And
Yeah, we watched Joey live, so I mean, there's
I
that.
started Joey live. I didn't even know Joey had 2 seasons until like a year ago.
Oh yeah. Oh, 2 seasons, man. So that brings us to Ross.
Yeah.
Because Ross is what are his arcs apart from Rachel? He's got the divorces.
Yeah.
You know? So
I think also just becoming more sure of himself, because he was very insecure at times, and just pining over Carol in the beginning, and then pining over Rachel in the beginning, and I feel like even professionally, by the end, he's way more sure of himself. And because I watched the pilot and the series finale back to back, and it's like a whole different character of Ross from beginning to end.
Yeah, I would say that they let him be confident past Monica and Chandler hooking up, because like that's when he still also has the rage issues as well. Was that the last time that we get his like paleontology career? Because he goes from paleontology to like being
a professor. What is he at the end? Is he still a professor at the end?
Yeah, because we don't see too much later with that, right?
It's been a while since I've watched the whole show. I think he might just be a professor all the way till the end then.
Yeah. And his job, like, it was never so important because, like, we know he loves dinosaurs, you know, and because, like, he was also doing a research grant too. Like, that's where Charlie and Greg Kinnear came in, and he was trying to get a grant with that, right?
Yeah, he was.
So he worked at the museum, got fired because of his rage, became a professor, then he stayed in that in a research position. Is that?
I think so, yeah.
We're taking way too much time on something that doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Because like you're right with his confidence level, and I feel like that's less Ross and more David Schwimmer, like really finally figuring out the character, because it's a weird balancing character, because you can't be so he's got this neurosis side of him, he's got like this sad sack side of him, and we see that right away from the beginning, like this mopiness, but at the same time he's just getting divorced, and yet we also need to like him, and he also needs to be funny, and he needs to be goofy and quirky. He needs to be the sort of guy that wears 2 name tags.
Yeah.
And so he kind of develops that confidence as an actor, I feel like. And I think that we credit that more to Schwimmer than we do to the writing of Ross.
Yeah, and we talk about Monica in the beginning having so many connections, but I mean, he's connected really well to Monica and Chandler and Rachel.
Yeah.
And even it's underrated. Him and Phoebe are a good funny combo when they're together, because they're so opposite in some ways.
Yes, and like we said, with the 3 divorces, we've got the divorce. Obviously, we start off with the divorce to Carol, and we get to the divorce of the wedding and the dating, and then the divorce of Emily, and then we get to the annulment and not really annulment and divorce with Rachel, and then having a kid with her and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And this guy, he just is bouncing all over. Like if we're talking about how Rachel doesn't know what she wants, and that throughout the course of this series, she finds out what she wants. Ross has always known what he wants, but has never let himself believe it and know it and be bold enough to go for it.
Absolutely. It's like even in the beginning, he's like, what do you think? Can I ask you out sometime? Yeah. Okay, maybe I will. It's like, just do it.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand. It's like it's the day after her potential wedding, so I can understand letting that breathe a little bit. But
yeah. Another thing I noticed watching these episodes back to back is season 1. I mean, this is post divorce from Carol. You see Ross's apartment. It's a different apartment, but his first apartment. And it's like so relatable. We've all been there. It's an empty apartment with no furniture, and they're putting together like IKEA furniture. Oh, yeah. It's like, how many of us were there at 21? And then the finale, Ross has like a beautifully decorated apartment with like designer stuff everywhere. And it's like, that's a good change for 10 years.
All from Pottery Barn.
Yeah. He hates Pottery Barn?
He's got the apothecary table from the days of yore.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, yeah. Some things you notice when you watch those two back to back, like it's night and day in so many different ways.
And I mean, really, like you're right about his apartment too. Is like when he moves into Ugly Naked Guy's apartment, his old apartment, like that is a big step for his character. Of weirdly enough, like him just being across the street, quote unquote, from them, like we see more confidence in that. Again, it's more to the credit of Schwimmer than it is to Ross, but
yeah. And Monica's apartment, I think, stays the most same because I think a lot of that stuff was from her grandmother.
Yep.
But even Joey's apartment still, I think, over the years gets a little bit more modern, a little more put together as you go.
Yeah, because they have to have it where Rachel's there for a little bit, and then when Rachel and Monica are there for a little bit, and then when Joey has, what's her name, the model?
Oh, Janine, yeah.
Janine, thank you. I was going to say Jeanette, and I'm like, that's not quite right, so I'm glad I was at least really close.
Well, I think they wrote it in because there was the episode where they got robbed completely, and then Joey felt good and like felt bad about saying mean things to Joey and just refurnished the entire apartment. I feel like that was a show of being like, we need an excuse to make this place nicer.
There you go. Yeah,
that's my guess.
And then what? They break the Bark Lounges. They have to replace them or something.
Oh, I forgot. But yeah, no. Joey broke one, or no, Rachel. Either Joey or Rachel broke one, and they like put it back together, like fake put it back together, and then Chandler thought that he broke it, and he switched it with his, and then Joey went and broke Chandler's.
I want to apologize to everyone that we didn't rewatch all 10 seasons in preparation for this episode, and we don't have that just ready to go.
You know, I've seen it enough times. Okay, before I've watched The Office, Friends was my no dispute number one favorite show.
Yeah.
And it might be The Office or Lost.
It was never that good to me, but I can't sit here and say I didn't like Friends. I enjoyed Friends a lot, and I've watched it a good amount of times. But
yeah,
I don't think it ever cracked top 5 of shows for me.
Oh, I think it still is probably top 5 of me. At least top 10 for sure. Maybe. It's top 10 for sure.
Yeah. Maybe at one point it was top 5 for sitcoms, if we're being that specific, but
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's Ross.
Yeah.
Rossitron.
But going along with the thing about Ross's apartment, this kind of goes out of Ross into the whole show, all of them in general. You definitely get the sense of going from your early 20s or early to mid 20s to being in your 30s. They all are a little bit more put together. I mean, by the end, the actors are making $1 million an episode, so that helps too. But they all have more sure of themselves. Their wardrobe, their apartments, their styles all get a little bit more grown up. It's less hand-me-down stuff and less I'm being intentional. And they all have better careers. And it's just, you see what your 20s can be versus your 30s.
Yeah. And probably anyone, it's very, very common for anyone who is 30 or over, when they're in their early 30s, you can think to yourself like, oh, I could still keep up with 20s, you know, like I'm like just on the other side of the 20s. And then you hang out with like some 22 or 23-year-olds and you're like, oh no, I'm in a very different spot in my life than these 22 and 33-year-olds are.
Oh yeah.
It reminds you just how far you are. Like, it makes you feel so much more older, but you are more of an adult now because you are in your early 30s. And I don't know about you, like Brian, I don't know why people are like, oh, I'm getting older. It's so terrible. Like, I'm 37 and being 37 is really great. Sure, I'm a little more tired than I was 10 years ago. Sure, my tastes are a little different. And maybe if I blink wrong, I'll throw out a rib out of alignment. But I have a lot of fun. I have more money than I did. I have less worry and stress. And there's a lot of great things I have now that I didn't have back when I was in my 20s. So
yeah. Well, I mean, being your elder, I'm 38 now. I mean, it's so much different.
You got me. Actually, by the time this airs, I'll probably be 38. I'm certain I will be 38 when this is posted. So
yeah. The joke, if you don't know this, is that I'm like 2 weeks older than Matt.
The joke is that the joke, as always, is time.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to I'm sorry if I already told you this story. I forget who I told this to. To a girl who works at one of my stores, because at my job I go to different grocery stores, and I was talking with her, and she made the comment like, "Oh yeah, I was born in 2002." I'm like, "Excuse me, 2002?" Like,
excuse me. I've been on a plane pre 9/11, so that is my litmus test for if you are old enough to be my friend or not.
Yeah, I was like, "You were born when I was in high school?" Like,
that's not okay. I saw The Matrix in theaters.
I didn't, but I could have. I saw The Phantom Menace, which was the same year in theaters.
Same year, yeah. There you go. You saw American Pie in theaters too, same year.
I did not.
That is incorrect.
If you think my parents were taking me to that movie when I was 11.
Hey, my parents took me to Titanic when I was 7. No, it was that Titanic was 97, wasn't it? So I was probably more like 10.
I remember as a kid watching Titanic at home on the VHS tape, and during the naked scene, my mom held up a blanket in front of the screen.
During that scene, we went with another family that we're friends with, and I was like 5 seats away from my parents. I was sitting next to other kids like and their family and like my age, and I look to the left. I'm like, I see my parents just like bearing down at me, like looking like, "Are you watching this?" I'm like,
See, I don't know your parents, so I don't. Yeah, I don't know what to picture. Whereas I feel like you can picture my parents. I don't know your parents that well.
Yeah, I've kept it that way for many years. I don't want you forming those connections.
Fair enough. So, Matt, do you have any other comments about like Friends, or both either the characters or just life in general? How it changed from it was 94 to 04.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing too. Like it's not just enough that we get older in that time, but it's like the difference of what 1994 looks like versus what 2004 looks like. It's like, I mean, not to be sad and hark on this a little bit more, but like just even a 9/11 a pre 9/11 and a post 9/11 world is massively different. And I know that they purposely avoided referencing 9/11 in the show outside of like nods, like Joey wearing the firefighter's shirt as like a, honoring a patriotic thank you for your service sort of thing. But like, then we see the finale of this where they're on a plane and it's all about like stopping this plane from taking off and causing a commotion. And I'm like, that still, and like Ross running through the airport, that's only 3 years removed from that. And so it still is early enough and fresh enough of a time when people can remember what that was like. And like, okay, the world's not quite like this anymore, but we're still going to pretend that you can run through the airport and get to the terminal.
Well, Ross had to buy a ticket to get there, which a couple years previously he didn't, because my aunt is she was retired now, but for years she was a missionary to the Philippines. And when we were kids, we used to be able to go all the way to the gate and welcome her home.
Yep. I did welcome one person at the gate, or like one time in my life. And I was like, oh, yeah, we can just go to the airport. And like, okay, we're going through security. And then here we are, which security was a lot more toned down. It's just don't have metal in your pocket. That's it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And even like by the end of Friends, they had cell phones, which they did not have in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, they were flip phones, but they still had them.
Yep.
And talking about the 9/11. So I watched it on the DVDs, and the DVD, especially for season 1, I think it was made pre 9/11. And there's actually a scene. It's just sometimes they'll pan to scenes of New York City between scenes.
Yep.
In the pilot, there's a scene that you can't see if you watch it on HBO Max or any new releases, where between scenes it pans, and it's a very prominent shot of the Twin Towers. But
yeah.
since I own the DVDs that were made pre 9/11, I was able to watch that scene. I mean, it's just so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, like man, that changed so much. Like even
Yeah.
delayed a couple movies. Like there's an old Spider-Man trailer you can probably still find on YouTube where
The
he
web is between
strings
us.
up these robbers in a helicopter in a wing or in a web that's suspended between the two towers.
Mm-hmm.
Which like that's a smart way to do that, but then they go down and you're like, oh, okay, well let's retool some things. And actually, the final ending of the movie where he's swinging and then he lands on like a flagpole and it's like patriotic and it's like, well, that's their way of being like, hey, this is us saying we honor New York for what happened.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like the era like that. You think of that as a different time, but the Friends is smack dab in the middle of that.
Yep.
And even on a less serious note, like Friends was big for me in my teen years, right? And going back to like when I was a little kid, one of our big family shows we watched was Full House. And I always think of those as two completely different eras of TV, but they overlapped by 2 years, 1 year. No, 1 year. 1 year they overlapped. The first year of Friends was the last year of Full House. And I don't think of those as existing at the same time.
Yeah, because it is different type of. I mean, obviously it's a different type of show because it's moving, and we've talked a little bit about this of the move from family comedies into friend comedies, and obviously Friends was a huge factor in that, and a huge part of reinvigorating it. And it's not like we didn't have friend comedies. You've talked about Cheers before. I think we mentioned Cheers in the last episode, and how that was like a precursor for Friends, but like Friends really just hit the nail on the head and set a precedent for all these other shows that came after it. And we saw almost the death of family comedies, maybe because of Friends.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last big classic family sitcom was Raymond.
Yeah. I mean, you can make arguments for things like The Middle or The Goldbergs, but like I don't view that as like that same success that,
The Middle kind of falls into like the category with like Malcolm in the Middle or Grounded for Life, where it's like it's not a super like unhealthy family, but it's a little bit more of a dysfunctional family, a little bit more. So
sure,
Goldbergs,
but that's also kind of going back to like they had to go back to the 80s to do that.
Yeah,
or fresh off the boat, going back to the 90s.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that is Friends. That is Friends season 1 or pilot episode all the way to the ending. And let us know what you think. What is some moments that we missed that were big moments for these characters? And was there anything that they changed or anything that we were wrong about? There, spoiler alert, there's not. We're never wrong. All right. So you send us your hate mail. We'll send it right back at you. Right back.
Yep. I would welcome hate mail just because we don't usually get any mail.
Hey guys, someone hates us. Awesome.
They know who we are.
That's so cool. I'm gonna frame this.
Yeah.
Well, we should talk about our trivia. I think now's a good time to go into trivia.
Yeah. So Matt, you had last week's trivia.
I did have last week's trivia. We talked about Stranger Things. If you didn't listen to that, go listen to it. Unless you don't like Stranger Things. Even if you don't like Stranger Things, we talked about like why that was so influential, and we've been talking a little bit about like how some things changed in this time period. Guys, when Stranger Things came out, between then and now, television has changed drastically, massively influential for sure.
Oh,
but really talked about one of the actresses from there, Winona Ryder, 80s icon, and she was booked pretty early in the process to be a main lead in this show. But she had one stipulation in her contract, and she said, if this happens, I need you to be flexible with it. So the stipulation was, that was the question, what was that stipulation? Stipulation was, if there's ever a Beetlejuice sequel filmed, that took priority over Stranger Things. That Stranger Things had to make way for her to be able to go film that. So that was, and that did end up happening only like after 4 seasons, though, when the Beetlejuice started getting filmed.
For that to be a stipulation, was the Beetlejuice sequel in talks way back in like 2016?
That has been in talks for over a decade.
Huh.
I don't know exactly when it started being in talks, but I've heard talk about it for at least 10 years.
Do you know if that did conflict with the Stranger Things schedule? Like, were they filming at the same time with those two? Because
by the time we're at because Stranger Things 5 came out after Stranger Things 5 was filmed after Beetlejuice, so they did make sure to work around that. But to be fair, David Harbour's been doing a bunch of stuff, so they had to work around that. Finn Wolfhard was in the 2 Ghostbusters movies, and I think he's been doing some other things. Like, really, a lot of people have had their own scheduling conflicts, so they have been working around them, but she's the only one contractually from the beginning that had that earmarked for her. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So, and then I have the trivia for today. So, the episode titles of Friends are the one with or the one where this happens. So obviously the 6 friends all have their names in episodes at different times. And there is only one character outside of the main 6 who has their name in more than one episode title. And it's not who you think.
It's not Jacques Cousteau?
No, it's not. So, I mean, obviously the main 6, they all have their names in multiple episodes. I believe Rachel is in the most episode titles of anybody. But there's one supporting character outside of the main 6 who is in 2 episode titles by name.
That's a unique piece of trivia.
Yep.
And you'll have to listen next time to find out who that is.
Yep.
Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.